Hello and welcome. The new hero to the franchise has been revealed. It's going to be the Rogue, coming with the Warden in episode 1. He's a pure DPS hero with abilities instead of defenses. Let's jump in and see what the forum post has to say. As some of you super sleuths guessed, was it the ears? The Rogue is a highly trained elven soldier. The catch? He's the last remaining elite warrior from an ancient elven army, meaning he comes ready to battle enemies head on as a melee and ranged dual-wielding hero. As a combat-only defender, the Rogue is agile, dashing in and leaping out of battle as he sees fit. A lack of defensive towers does not mean the Rogue is without protection. Going stealth activates invisibility, and his arsenal of devices combine to disable, enfeeble, and slow your enemy's advances. Let's dive into the details of these attacks, abilities, and devices. Alright, attacks and primary abilities. Developers note, all things subject to change, as usual. Weapons of choice, dual wielding, melee in the right hand, crossbow in the left. So his primary attack is going to be a melee attack. It looks like he's going to equip swords, just like the Squire, same weapons. Secondary attack, ranged attack. The Rogue fires his equipped crossbow, dealing damage based on the weapon's stats. So crossbow in one hand, sword in the other. So it looks like we should be farming up some Huntress and Squire weapons for this guy. Primary ability 1, Swift Assault, dashes forward and deals AoE damage once reaching his destination. From stealth, hero throws a single deadly knife at an enemy, dealing massive damage to a single target. Primary ability 2, Disengage, throws a spread of daggers forward, dealing AoE damage and applying Rogue's Mark to all enemies hit during attack. The Rogue leaps backward out of danger, providing a gap between him and his foes. From stealth, daggers deal more damage and pin enemies to the ground, immobilizing them for a short period. So some interesting differences between these two abilities. Ability 1 appears to be big single target damage, whereas ability 2 is multi-target. They both deal some AoE, but the ability 2 applies a debuff or a mark to multiple enemies, and it also acts as a crowd control ability if you're doing it from stealth. If I had to guess, ability 2 is going to take a lot more mana than ability 1, and stealth as a mechanic, it appears it'll be one of his defenses, so to speak. Devices and utility abilities. The Rogue has been specially trained for direct combat, a fighter, some may say, and brings a preference for battling enemies with some powerful tools, some very powerful tools. With this battle style, the Rogue does not build defenses, but instead, this lone warrior comes equipped with devices that act as mobile traps that deal elemental damage and apply debilitating status effects to all marked enemies during combat, regardless of the distance between the defender and the enemy. The Rogue's stealth also comes in handy for those moments when defenders want to surprise their foes, escape danger, or mark enemies from afar. Developer note, we wanted the Rogue to play like no other pure damage characters that we've made in our Dungeon Defenders games. We wanted him to feel like there was strategy in his abilities, similar to placing towers. He's designed to fill the role of a special enemy killer, focusing down the strongest foes with both consistent and burst damage when you focus a specific enemy, with nearby enemies taking some hits being an added bonus. For our first non-building hero, he'll have a lot of big moments and strategies similar to when a tower is beating down enemies, except you'll be that tower. He's got a passive ability, Rogue's Mark. Marks are applied to a maximum of 8 enemies while using Swift Assault, Disengage, or attacks from stealth. The Rogue can then activate debilitating devices on marked enemies. Device 1, Arcing Snares. Marked enemies with nets of lightning, disabling their attacks and abilities, while causing attacks against them to deal additional lightning damage. So disabling attacks and abilities, meaning say if a Sharkin is affected by Arcing Snares, perhaps he won't be able to charge, or if a Djinn is affected by Arcing Snares, they won't be able to steal your defenses. That's how I'm interpreting that. Device 2, Napalm Incinerates. Marked enemies dealing a large amount of fire damage over a short time. Enemies also take increased damage from other attacks and abilities from the Rogue while Napalm is active. I may not be interpreting this correctly, but it seems like enemies affected by Device 1 will take more damage from all attacks, whereas enemies affected by Device 2 will only take additional damage from the rogue himself. Device 3, Noxious Injects, marked enemies with a highly potent toxin that slows movement and deals poison damage while Noxious is active, so this is his crowd control ability. I think it's safe to assume that Device 1 is their first defense, Device 2 is their second defense, Device 3 is their third defense, so for rifted stuff, for fused defenses or fused abilities in this case, Ancient, Guard, and then Militia here for the Device 3. On top of those 3 devices, he's also got 2 utilities, so he'll have 5 total defenses or abilities in this case. Next up, Utility Ability 1, Stealth. The rogue becomes invisible for a short duration. While invisible, the agile hero can mark enemies with primary attacks, secondary attacks, and empower non-device abilities. He cannot be targeted by enemies, but he can still take damage from their attacks if he gets within damaging range. Riposte buff. Using a non-device ability breaks invisibility and applies a buff to the rogue. This buff reduces incoming damage from all sources and deals his melee damage back to attacking enemies for a short time. Utility Ability 2, Carnage. The rogue throws a flurry of deadly piercing daggers, dealing AoE damage every half a second throughout its duration. Defenders can move while this ability is activated, and it can be channeled until you're completely out of mana. From stealth, AoE damage radius is increased and it breaks invisibility. So the stealth mechanic is interesting. You can initiate a big fight with your stealth, and then from your stealth, other things are buffed or do a different effect. So your abilities do something different while you're stealth. It kind of buffs them. It doesn't say this breaks stealth, so maybe you can do your primary ability 1 and 2 while you're stealth, and then you can break your stealth with your 5. Maybe that'll be the stealth rotation. Who knows? Can't wait to get in and experiment with this stuff. Looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. The new map, The Keep, we did already see this, as well as the new enemy, the Lycan. I'll leave a card for my video breaking down all the new maps, the Warden's defenses and abilities, and the Lycan enemy as well. What's next? We still have lots of exciting changes and updates coming to DDA that we'll share with you all during our Friday Fun Day dev streams, including showing off the rogue this week. So 3 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, this week, they're going to do another dev stream on their Twitch channel. I'm going to leave a link to that in the description, as well as a link to this forum post if you want to pour through it and check things out yourself. That's going to be it from me here today. Thanks so much for watching.